All right, I'm here with David Siegel. He is the CEO of Meetup.com and the best-selling author of Decide and Conquer 44 Decisions That Will Make or Break All Leaders. David, welcome to the show, brother.
It is so great to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, I'm excited too. Okay, I want to get right into it. You are the CEO and founder of, or the founder of, no, sorry, not the founder, but you are the president, is that correct? The CEO of Meetup. And, when you think of anybody acquiring a company, it always just seems like, oh, this was like an easy transition in the tech world and like things just happen. And this guy's so lucky to acquire a multi-million dollar company. But you talk about in your book, it didn't always happen that way. But for people that don't even know what Meetup is, and they're like, what is this? Can you kind of explain what it is and maybe like why even more so now than ever before, this is the perfect time for people to be getting involved in meetup.com?
Sure. Thank you. Okay. So Meetup is the world's largest platform for finding and building community. And the reason why that's so important is because of our mission. Our mission is simply to cure the loneliness epidemic that exists in this world. So some stats. According to a recent study by a Surgeon General in the US, 46% of people, not sometimes, not occasionally, but regularly feel lonely. When people feel lonely, that's highly correlated to anxiety, to depression, to, God forbid, self-harm. Meetup's job is to help people find their people. So if people love book clubs, they could join one of the thousands of book clubs, or hiking, or tech, or whatever it is. And just one last point, things have changed so much around COVID. It used to be that the number one and number two search terms were always tech and hiking and book clubs. Those are the top three for our first 15 years. Suddenly COVID happens. 2020, the number one term is finding adult friends. 2021, finding adult friends. 2022, 23. It's just overwhelming everything because, people during, I think, the pandemic realized even more how important it is not to be lonely and to try to do something about loneliness. And, that's where Meetup steps in. And I'm very lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think one of the stats that you've shared with me too is this, speaking of the loneliness epidemic, is that, and you can share it better with me, that something like it's equivalent to having like 2 packs of cigarettes a day or something. I mean, do you remember that
Yeah,
stat?
yeah. It's more safe and better for your body to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day than to be lonely because of just the dangers that loneliness actually has among so many people and what it ultimately leads to, and why community is so important. I think every person who is listening knows someone who is lonely, knows someone who is just has anxiety, who's afraid of getting out and doing things, and ultimately everything is better when you're around people. Meaning, joys are more meaningful when you do them with other people, and sorrows are less sorrowful and are more helpful to you when you're also being there surrounded by other people. And that's where Meetup steps in. And going back to the WeWork question, I'm sorry, Joel. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go to the WeWork question because WeWork acquired us. WeWork wanted to build community into all of their buildings. They wanted to find a company to acquire that was all about community and that would help everyone who was at a WeWork to become more community oriented. That was the original goal of the acquisition.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to get into that as well. Really quick for Meetup though, I'm also curious, like what are the most popular groups that you're seeing right now currently, and what are they doing? That is there a common thread that some of these groups might be doing that's working well for them?
Yeah. So here's a stat. 4 years ago, the number of pickleball members of pickleball groups, there were about 40,000 member pickleball groups. Today, 5 years later, there's over 350,000 members of pickleball groups. So we're talking about a nearly 10x increase in pickleball. It's just kind of, we all know it's going through. The other thing that's also not surprisingly going through is chess. Chess has been around for, 1,000 years, right? But we have now thousands of chess groups and people that are coming back and playing chess in person. Not sure what's happening. I think chess.com, people are playing online chess a lot more often, but chess is also kind of growing significantly. It was also during the pandemic, we saw certain groups go down a lot and certain type of groups go up a lot. So for example, when people had to separate physically, we saw volleyball groups and badminton groups and tennis groups all kind of go up a lot, and basketball groups went down a lot. So anything that involved physical touch went down. Obviously, for a long time, cryptocurrency groups were going up like crazy. The other area, not surprisingly, that's going up very significantly is anything regarding AI. Is just going through the roof right now. So no massive surprises, but certainly, we're at the leading edge of things, and actually, it probably could be an interesting way to go about investing is to find areas where there's meetup groups that are growing a lot and invest in those areas. I have not done that, but perhaps someone could figure out how to do that, make some money.
I love it. I love it. In your book, you talk in Decide and Conquer. You talk about one of your missions in part for Meetup was we use technology to keep people off technology. But then this thing called the pandemic hit, and I'm just curious, like, how were you able to kind of keep that same ethos, but pivot you acquired the company too. You took over at like the time the pandemic hits, like 2019, 2020. I mean, the worst time you could possibly take over a company that requires people to be in person connecting. So how did you pivot there? And then now do you see things even differently, maybe post pandemic?
I love it. So yeah, the number one reason why we denied someone to become a meetup organizer pre-pandemic was because they wanted to have a virtual group. Then suddenly we see in February of 2020, every single group in China gets shut down. Literally 95% shut down immediately. In Italy, same thing. In the US, we thought, it'll never happen in the US. Of course, that's what happened. All of our groups started shutting down. We thought the meetup, at the time, Meetup was losing $20 million a year. We thought Meetup was definitely officially going to go under because we were actually in the process of getting sold out of WeWork. And we got all of our company together and we said, okay, what is the mission of our company? Is the mission of our company around IRL in real life, getting people off of technology? Or is the mission of our company really about connections? Is it really about helping people to connect with others? And right now, the only safe way you could do it is to actually do it virtually. So within 3 days, we launched an MVP, a minimum viable product, to allow for the first time ever for people to create virtual meetup groups, which had not existed in the first 16 years of the company. Created virtual groups. Since 2020, we've had over 5 million virtual events on the platform, which has been obviously very helpful for many people. We're now back up to 80% is in person and 20% are virtual. But it was a battle because most of the employees at Meetup ultimately, said, but we're about getting people off of technology. Our mission is focused on that. And sometimes as a leader, you have to say, hey, I hear what you're saying, but it's not a democracy. We need to do this. This may not end in a week or two. So fortunately, we went to virtual. But at the same time, by the way, my board was saying, hey, we should go all in on virtual. We should just become a virtual platformer and forget the IRL thing. That's the past. Let's go all in on virtual. Well, thank God we didn't do that because there's other companies that did go all in on virtual, like Hopin is one and a couple of others, and they don't even exist anymore. So I think we struck the right balance of allowing virtual, but making sure that people understood that in person is always better than virtual, helping people to create events. Like if you went running and you did it in person, how do you transition that to a virtual event? The way you do that is you go running by yourself, you come back, and everyone would drink a beer and chill and talk about their run, together as a community. So there's ways of kind of keeping community in doing things virtually, and we educated a lot of organizers about how to make that transition.
So amazing. And in your book, which again, let's talk about the book just a little bit, the 44
I'm
decisions
glad you
that's
like
going to
it
make
so much.
yeah, I mean,
You
well,
like it more than I did. This is great.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm reading it and I'm just blown away by the company you took over. It wasn't, it was, they were bankrupt. They had a lot of issues going on. They weren't making money and nobody was paying attention but you. And you had to come in and fire a lot of people. And nobody likes a leader when you're at the bottom and you're seeing this. You have this perception, this
I was
idea of
hated.
who you had to be hated.
No, oh my God. There's a website called Blind. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Uh-uh.
It's basically employees trash talking the leadership and the CEO. And people said to me, David, do not ever go on Blind. It is just filled with so much venom about you. So many people talking about you that you're destroying the company and destroying the culture. And I'm like, thank you for telling me that. And at a certain point, you just kind of, it's hard because you look on Glassdoor and you see negative things about yourself. But ultimately, if you focus on what's best for the company, it's a lot easier than just what's best for yourself. But it was very hard. We fired, we had multiple rounds of layoffs. We fired, company was losing $20 million a year, wasn't going to exist anymore. And And my feeling was Meetup is better to exist with a smaller number of people than to have a lot of people and don't exist anymore.
Yeah. When you took over, I'm curious, what was the self-talk? What was the conversation in your head as
Mm,
you're starting to see all these things unravel and you're like, I've
yeah,
got to turn this around. But like you said, you're getting beat up by the people, people are going to hate you and
yeah.
it's not going to be easy. What were you telling yourself? Like, it's going to be okay. Like you can do it. I mean,
I
what do you
was
tell
like,
yourself?
what did I get myself into,
Yeah.
man? So I would say the first thing was I needed to, number one, keep WeWork and Adam Newman kind of at bay. So as you remember from the book, I told Adam that for the first 3 months, he's not allowed to talk to me and I can't have any distractions. Our job isn't to serve WeWork at Meetup. WeWork acquired us, but we need to become healthy on our own. And just like in a relationship, in a marriage, like if one party of the marriage is not a healthy human being, then they need to focus on themselves first before they could, bring it into the marriage. Similarly, Meetup wasn't healthy, and we needed to take care of ourselves, put the proverbial oxygen mask on ourselves before we could help others. So I stood up in front of all of WeWork's top 100 executives in the company with a big PowerPoint slide of an oxygen mask. And I said, we need to put this oxygen mask on or else Meetup isn't going to exist. So just give me some space and we'll figure out how I could help you and we could work together later on. So that was one kind of thing that was going through my mind. That worked out pretty well. On the employee side, I think you have to decide whether your goal is to be liked or your goal is to be effective in your role.
Mhm.
And as a leader, I had struggled with this a lot because, frankly, as a person, I really do like to be liked a little bit too much, and I would say it has impeded my ability to be an effective leader in the past, and I've kind of learned from that. I'm not saying your goal is to be disliked, but your goal is to be kind of confident that you're making the best decisions for the company. You're doing them in as empathetic and respectful a way as possible, and kind of let the chips fall where they may, but not need to. A lot of times people would come into a room, my executive team, and they'd say, well, we can't do that. Our employees will be really upset. And I said, I understand that, but what's the right decision? Well, if the right decision is to do ABC, then we're going to do the right decision and we're going to explain why we're doing this decision. We're not going to do the wrong decision because it'll make employees feel bad.
Yeah, that was a big theme I thought over the book, and leaders should take away is transparency. And you were
Right.
constantly through the process being transparent, whether there
Yeah.
were layoffs or anything that was happening within the company when they were going to be acquired. You continued to be transparent. I think that was an
Thank
effective
you.
thread was that held strong for everybody
Yeah.
in the company.
The
I think that
story,
was
the
really
story I
key.
like sharing on that one is when I had the opportunity when I was the CEO of Investopedia prior to this, and I met with Jack Welch, who is the ultimate leader. He won by Time Magazine as the manager of the century of the entire 20th century. So I sat down with him one on one, and I said, "What's the most important advice you would give me in terms of leadership?" And he said, "Best thing I could tell you is just build trust. And the best way to build trust is to be transparent. Just be as transparent as possible about the good, the bad, and the ugly, what's happening well, what's not happening well. And ultimately, people then trust you, and trust is the foundation for all relationships. So thank you for calling that out. It's something that's a very important part. It's one of our core values is actually trust and transparency.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you in the book you mentioned a key phrase that stuck with me was be confident enough to lead as if you had nothing to lose. And I thought, wow, that that to me says what a real true leader is because during the pandemic and other times, we saw people layoffs and jobs and I saw a lot of leaders, CEOs, and a lot of people being squirrely, and they were not doing what I think leaders should really be doing, which is doing what is right, not what is easy. And you did the hard route, which I really appreciate. And so I'm just curious, out of the 44 decisions or tenets that you kind of show in this book, is there one it could be transparency, by the way, or building that trust, but is there one that sticks out more, or was there maybe a framework or something that you use to stay aligned to your core values so that you didn't go off that path like so many other leaders I saw?
Yeah, so I like that you call it be confident and be transparent. I won't give that one as an example. The one that I'll call out, which I'm sure you remember as well, is be kind. And that there's a big difference though between being kind and being nice. And I think a lot of people can mistake those. It's not kind, it's not nice, excuse me, to fire someone. It's not nice to tell someone that what they're working on isn't the right thing to work on for the best interest of the company. but it could be kind to firing someone. And how you fire someone, you want to do that as kind as possible. And the importance of being kind as opposed to being an asshole, as opposed to, your reputation matters. And you could lay people off, like I gave as an example, in the right way or the wrong way. You could build consensus in the right way or the wrong way. You could be dictatorial, or you could listen to other people and then still make the right decision. And I would say an important principle in decision making is, how do you make decisions in a kind way? And there's always that opportunity to be kind in making decisions, and that's another one I would really call out. The other one, if I had another one, is just the importance of speed in decision making. You saw that throughout the book as well.
Yeah.
Theodore Roosevelt gave a great quote, which was, the best decisions are great decisions, the next best decisions are bad decisions, and the worst decisions is no decision. And I think we've all worked with people who are non-decision makers, analysis paralysis, and speedy decision making is extremely important, because then you make a mistake fast, you fail fast, you learn fast, you grow fast, you iterate fast. And that's how you kind of help to improve a company.
I love that. One of my mentors says success loves speed. So then it goes along
Nice.
with what you're saying. And, when you were saying about being kind, it reminds me of, I was listening to Wayne Dyer recently, and he was saying, one of his old audios, and he said, if you have a chance to either be right or be kind, he said, be kind. And I just thought that was great, and goes along with what you're talking about.
Thanks for sharing that.
I wanted to ask you, we'll wrap things up here in a second, but any exciting projects coming up for Meetup and you guys, and anything you have in store?
Yeah, a couple of things I would say. So the first is, there's a competitor of ours called Eventbrite, and Eventbrite is focused on tickets and selling tickets to different events. And it's something we hadn't focused on in the past, but we're creating a new capability for people who want to have tickets for their events at Meetup. And that's something that extremely different, extremely exciting. So that's one. The second thing that I'll call it even more so is, we're creating a new product to help people to specifically, almost like a dating app, find their friends and find their friend on Meetup by using data science and machine learning to find people who are more similar. But it's very hard to go on a friend date, like a one-on-one friend date. Let's go to coffee as a friend. It's very intimidating. It's kind of weird even. But if you say, hey, are you going to this hike? Let's both go to this hike together. Let's both go to this book club together. It's a lot less intimidating to ask someone to do something, not one-on-one, but to an event and to a group. And that's something also that we're building out that I'm very excited about Meetup, because if we can help people one-on-one find their people and make it not intimidating to get to know them in a very meaningful but non-stressful way, that could be really exciting. So those are a couple of things that we have coming down the pike at Meetup. So
that's very cool. That reminds me of Facebook or somebody saying, this person should be your friend based on the connections or based on what you like.
Right. But now you can actually do something about it by getting together in person, but not in a date way, but instead in a hey, let's both go bowling together with this large group of people. And if for some reason we have nothing to do with each other, we'll still have a good time with other people.
Yeah. That's amazing. All right, David Siegel, man, last but not least, where can people find you, connect with you, or just learn more about Meetup, or if they want to join Meetup and spearhead their own group, like I was talking to you offline before we jumped on?
Yeah. Okay. So LinkedIn is great. Just type in David Siegel, Siegel, Meetup, because there's hundreds of David Siegels out there. I'm LinkedIn connected to 10 David Siegels. My graduating class, there were 4 David Siegels from University of Pennsylvania. So you got to type in David Siegel Meetup. That's probably the best way. LinkedIn, Twitter at David Mayer Siegel. And then Meetup, I would say the best thing to do is just download the Meetup app, take a look. You'll find something that's cool. And, hopefully you could join our 62 million strong community.
That's amazing. David, thanks for being on the show, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity.